So today I'm here to talk about my point of view on an innovative classroom. You might be wondering what gives me the ability or the credentials to do that. Well, my name is Adora Svitak, and at the age of 7, I published my first book. It's called Flying Fingers, Master the Tools of Learning Through the Joy of Writing. And since I published that book, I started going around to classrooms around the world, as well as in the US, talking to the kids about why reading and writing was important. From there on, it went to speaking at hundreds of schools over video conferencing and distance learning. And I would go to conferences and talk to teachers about what I did and how to engage students in the classroom. And talking to teachers are actually one of my favorite audiences, administrators and educators, because you guys have a great impact on students and on the way they learn. So I just wanted to start out by getting to know my audience a little bit. Now for some investigating. Who are you exactly and what is it that you do? These are the questions that I want to find answers to, because I know that there are a lot of teachers, but there might also be a lot of administrators or technology coordinators. So please turn on your voting devices and just quickly tell me, and I'll start the vote, what is it that you do exactly? Vote now. Teacher, administrator, technology coordinator, media specialist or librarian, student, Russian spy, other. So, on your active expressions, if you need any help, you can find one of the people in the orange shirts who are walking around, just tackle them and demand how to use these. Basically, you turn it on with the button right here, and you will have some choices as to what you can answer, and you hit A, B, C, D, E, or F. And let's see how many votes have come on in. Looks like quite a few, so I will go ahead and stop the vote. No second chances. All right, so it looks like the majority of you are teachers. 30% of those of you who answered said teachers. It looks like a lot of you are also administrators. And quite a few of you are also technology coordinators, media specialists, and librarians. I do see that 2.5% of you are apparently spies lurking among us, which is very interesting. I will warn you that you will not pick up very much information about the US government by being here. You'll learn more about students and technology. Very interesting, nevertheless. And where are the students in the room? Stand up if you're a student. See a student? See some more students? So Alan said, imagine as though there are two students sitting next to you. If you want to hear their point of view, just walk over and ask them after the session. I highly recommend it because we really do have a lot to say. Well, now on to the point of my presentation, and that is about innovative classrooms. So when I say innovative classroom, what do you think that calls to mind? Any ideas? What do you think of when I say innovative classroom? Yes?
Doing new things with old tools, new tools, whatever is available to do something magical in the classroom.
Very good definition. Doing new things with old tools, new tools, whatever's available to work magic in their classroom. That's a very good definition. And sometimes when I talk to people about an innovative classroom, and sometimes honestly when I think, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of an innovative classroom, as far as a picture in my head, sometimes I think about kind of the tables, the chairs, the technology, the way everything is arranged. And according to Encarta, the word innovative means new and creative, especially in the way that something is done. So it's kind of interesting that I have that specific vision of a classroom arranged in a certain way. And though these things may contribute to an innovative classroom, today I'm really here to talk more about the human part, about leadership. So as far as leadership goes, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of leadership? Presidents, prime ministers? No matter what you think of when you first think of leadership, probably the first few images that come to your mind are of grown-ups. How many of you would say that's true when you think of leaders? I see a lot of raised hands. And what comes to mind when you think educational leadership? Principals, school district superintendents? In both cases, I do think that most people will think of a lot of adults, which I wonder about because according to the Encarta definition, leadership means the ability to guide, direct, or influence people. Nowhere in that definition is it mentioned that leadership is specific to adults. So why don't we think of more kids when we think of leadership? That is something that I would like to change today. If leadership means the ability to guide or direct or influence, then surely we have that ability just as much as some of our adult counterparts do. And if innovation means new or creative, especially in the way something is done, then giving kids the chance to lead, especially in education, certainly means innovation. What's more, I think that kids have a lot of experience with innovating, doing new and creative things. But I wanted to hear from you. What do you think that leadership means? Any ideas?
Clear vision.
Clear vision. Anything else?
Courage.
I'm sorry?
Courage.
Courage.
Inspiring others.
Inspiring others.
Willing to take risks.
Willing to take risks.
Modeling.
Responsibility. Listening. Guiding. And one more thing that you think of when you think responsibility. Making tough choices. Okay. Great, so looking at this definition, the definitions of leadership from the people in the audience, I see clear vision, courage, inspiring others, willing to take risks, responsibility, listening, guiding, making tough choices. How many of you have encountered a kid, maybe in your classroom, maybe one that you know, who has at least one of those qualities? I see a lot of raised hands. I have encountered many kids who have one of those qualities, or maybe more. And so this is my goal today, to show you why kids can be wonderful leaders and great leaders, especially in education. So giving my generation the opportunity to lead, there are a lot of reasons why this can bring innovation to our schools. Ask yourself, what should leadership look like? And I'm hoping that you'll see many more youth in the picture. My presentation is called Leadership from the Ground Up because it truly is from the ground up, a grassroots approach. Barack Obama really won the presidency because he utilized this grassroots approach, getting people, no matter their age or their position, to campaign for him across all walks of life. And so no matter your politics, it's easy to imagine how classrooms and schools could benefit from the innovations that student leadership could bring a similar ground-up approach. In case you're a little wary of test driving this concept without having seen it already, having seen leaders, then I have quite a few examples of leadership from kids. So here are a few pictures. You may be familiar with some of these. 12-year-old Craig Kielberger founded the well-respected charity Free the Children at 12 after reading about the plight of child laborers. Alec Lors founded his own nonprofit, Kids vs. Global Warming, after watching An Inconvenient Truth. Tabby Gevinson started the widely read fashion blog Style Rookie at age 11 and really campaigns for girls' rights everywhere. Jasmine Lawrence founded Eden Body Works, a line of natural body care products after a traumatic barbershop incident. And Alexandra Scott, she lost all her hair because of some of the chemicals. And then Alexandra Scott, whose Alex Lemonade Stand Foundation continues to raise money. She raised over $1 million for pediatric cancer care research using her own lemonade stand. Obviously, these are examples outside of this conference, but there are many kids here at this conference who are doing a lot to lead. If you need examples, just say hi to Zoe or Kelly or Blake, who are, I'm hoping, all here in the audience, and you will hear a lot about what they're doing, co-presenting, learning, and leading here at BLC. As for myself, I love to write from a young age, and when I was 7, I published my book. From there on, I went spreading a message of literacy and loving learning. Recently, I've actually begun my own event. It's called TEDx Redmond. How many of you have heard of TED? I see some raised hands. So TED is basically this conference in California where a lot of prestigious thinkers and doers come to share what they're up to. And TEDx events are kind of independently organized versions of that. So TEDx Redmond is entirely organized by kids for kids. I'm working with a committee entirely made up of students. And this is to show the world, really, that kids can take the lead. We're having a lot of speakers who have done great things, set up nonprofits, and so TEDx Redmond is hopefully my example of what kids can do. And I'm not here to plug my event, although I will quickly plug the fact that it's on September 18th and it's live streamed. But I want to say more about its message of power to the students. And the reason that I believe this is important is because we have a lot of messages to share that sometimes are left out of what we usually hear in the news or when we talk to adults about decisions and education, and I think we really need to bring this voice to the forefront. Now I quickly want to ask a question. Can you guys see me when I'm over here? Not really, sorry. It's a little difficult. I have to run over here to change my slides sometimes. So I'll try to stand like this a little bit. Now, as I've shown from some of the examples of kids doing great things, we are able to reach out and bring new ideas, new nonprofits, really a range of inspired thinking to the world. So with our extracurricular activities ranging from starting charities to bringing new ideas, organizing events, publishing books, really a whole range of things to the world, then our intercurricular activities and our schools need to embrace that, need to reflect that. Instead of being the exception, kids doing great things should be the norm. Why? One reason kids leading in their schools is a topic that's very important to me is the issue of fair representation. In the 1700s, the Americans protested the British policy of taxation without representation, so I sort of coined the phrase education without representation. While I'm not planning on tarring or feathering anyone for sometimes leaving a kid's voice out of decision making, I do believe that we deserve to have our voices heard when it comes to education. The things that affect us are our schools, our classrooms, what we learn. And leaving kids out leaves out a voice that can often bring fresh, new, creative ideas. Those of you who have watched my TED speech heard me talk about why a kid's voice can be often so important, so different. Maybe you've had big ideas before but thought, that won't work, that's too risky, that'll cost too much, that won't benefit me. You might have stopped yourself thinking about all the reasons why not to go ahead with it. And a big complaint in education that I've heard a lot is that too many aren't concerned about what's best for the students, but what's best for themselves. And I know the audience here is different because you're here learning about ways that you can improve your students' learning. But I think that having kids at the table brings a new voice, one that can advocate for themselves. And I also worry sometimes that too many educators are afraid to be innovative because of some of the risks that it brings. To go outside of the box, it can come with discouragement. Today at the keynote, we heard about Scratch, and I was actually the follow-up, and some teachers said that their biggest roadblocks were not students not wanting to use the technology, or were not that it was difficult to use. They said it wasn't that. They said it was sometimes the administrators or school leadership that might step in the way. And that shouldn't be the case. We need more innovation and less fear about it, less stagnancy. Past experiences or discouragements can provide powerful roadblocks to new innovation. And true reform can only happen when we're not afraid to walk new paths and go outside of the box. I think that kids aren't hampered as much when it comes to thinking about reasons why not to do things. After all, we're the people who've invented roller skating around the kitchen with raw eggs in our hands. We still dream about things. We still dream big. This inherent wisdom doesn't have to be insider's knowledge. We can share this with our teachers, with the administration, with our schools, if we're given the chance. Kids already do a lot of learning from adults, and I think that adults should start learning from kids, building stronger learning communities with everyone at the table. Besides wonderful things like representation and creativity, student leadership is, to put it bluntly, on-the-job training. Raise your hand if you think you've learned something from being in a leadership position. I see a lot of raised hands. Leadership teaches us about things like diplomacy and compromise, coming up with new ideas, being brave, speaking out. John F. Kennedy once said, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. I know that I've learned a lot of things from being in a leadership position. I know that many of you have learned things from being in a leadership role. These are skills that will last me a lifetime and come in handy not just when I'm leading a group or leading a discussion, but also when someone is applying for a job or when I am in a, even not in a leadership position, but maybe just at a party trying to have a conversation. I will think back to when I was a leader trying to come up with things to say. And so the skills that you learn from being in a leadership role are applicable to all areas. And at the same time, my learning, the things that I've learned from being in a leadership role, have helped me gain new roles. It's a win-win on both sides. So I know that there will be skeptics in every audience, and probably some of you will be shaking your heads and thinking, student leadership and students coming up with these new, fresh ideas, that's much easier said than done. And yes, I will admit that this whole concept of getting students to lead isn't as simple as taking a kid and say, here you go, get in the classroom and start leading. It doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately. As I earlier mentioned, I'm organizing this event, TEDx Redmond, with a committee comprised entirely of kids, and what I might have neglected to mention was that sometimes working entirely with my peers brings some challenges. We haven't had everyone come to our meetings on time necessarily, although we have had some pretty good attendance recently. You have to work around some challenges when you are working with a group of kids. And sometimes the pros and cons of working entirely with peers have made me kind of think about the student leadership issue. But this is actually a good thing, because it makes me realize getting students to lead isn't easy, but it's something that needs to be done. And it brings me to another very important point. No leader, no politician works without a speechwriter, aides, or campaigners. No celebrity doesn't have their manager or their advisors, or if you're Lindsay Lohan, a very challenged lawyer. Every leader, please don't sue me. Every leader needs help, no matter whether you're old or whether you're young. And so getting my generation to lead, we will need support and encouragement from you. Now, you might be thinking, well, this kid, she's asking a lot. She's asking, support and encouragement. She's asking all of this, walking up to our administrators and saying, let's get some kids at the table. That's sort of a lot. Well, it's not all give, and we actually give something very important in return, something even better than support and encouragement and all that sentimental stuff. We offer tech support. I'm sometimes skeptical of the whole digital natives thing. I know there's actually a session which would be very interesting, which is about the myth of digital natives. And I'm not saying that we know everything, and I'm not saying that we know every single thing about technology, but I think that we learn very quickly, and that having grown up in this technology world, having had a lot of exposure, that sometimes there are things that we might be just a little better at. So let me quickly poll the audience to gauge this. Yes or no, have you ever asked a kid for help with technology? Oh, sorry, I didn't even start the vote. Okay, there you go. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I love the names of some of these. George Clooney, Tom Cruise, Will Smith won. It looks like you have some celebrities in there. Okay, stop the vote. Okay, yes. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. My parents have asked me for help with technology. My mom actually, she handed me the iPhone. She's like, how do I do this, Adora? And I said, I'm not your tech support. She's like, yeah, you are. So, and I was a little indignant then, but I think it's kind of true about how kids can often provide a real helping role when it comes to understanding new technologies. Especially for teachers. I've seen a lot of teachers who are able to ask their students, but that takes a lot of courage because I talk to students about reading and writing, and sometimes I could see where it'd be hard to say, I don't know that. It takes a lot to admit, I don't know how to do that. I haven't done that before. And so teachers getting their students to help them requires more than saying, hey, can you help me figure out this? It requires an open-mindedness to the idea that, yes, I can learn from someone who's younger than me. That's the kind of open-mindedness that I think we need before students can start leading. It's also nothing to be embarrassed about. I was actually basically my family's navigator during our road trip around the East Coast using the iPhone, so it's very fun. Now, to put it a different way, when you were growing up, did you know how to podcast or post a video to YouTube or blog? Raise your hand if you did. I see like 1 or 2 raised hands. Did you know how to tweet or use online social networking? Well, I hear you saying, oh, that didn't exist when I was growing up. What excuses. Well, I understand that those weren't around, but with new technologies like iPods, cell phones, and the internet, then students live in a world that is becoming increasingly technology-driven. 30 years ago, could you predict that friend would become a word and that tweet would be common usage? So whether we like it or not, technology is an inerasable part of every 21st century student's life. In order to understand our needs, teachers have to understand the world that we live in and the technology that we use. And don't be afraid to hitchhike. I video conference with students around the US every day to talk about writing, and once in a while I'll see this type of teacher who seems a little afraid of the technology. So the video conferencing unit will be over there, and they'll stand kind of here, and they'll be afraid to touch buttons on the remote, and if anything goes slightly out of the ordinary, they'll call up a tech coordinator who's maybe a few miles away. And I've actually heard stories here about, in some schools, the technology is treated like a potentially explosive device. It's in this area, there's blue tape all around it, no one's allowed to go near it for fear that it will presumably implode and spontaneously combust. And this is exactly the opposite of the kind of stuff that we should be seeing. I said that students can provide tech support, and I think that when we blue tape off an area or really restrict it, then we're depriving ourselves, and you guys are depriving yourself of a chance to learn more about the technology, to hear from students, to hear their insights about it, what they know. And so instead of roping it off or blue taping it off, then we need to embrace it. Get your students to teach you, to look back at the definition of leadership over here. Where did that go? Okay, leadership. The ability to guide, direct, or influence people. Teaching is a big part of leadership. You will notice the ability to guide, direct, or influence people. The ability to guide is something that students can really pick up when they offer help to their teachers, when they say, let us teach you something. And so when it comes to technology, students can truly be leaders by providing that often needed guidance or direction. I recently read this Wired article about students providing tech support. This was honestly a little surprising to me. It's called Schools Tech Support Students. Teachers attending the National Educational Computing Conference weren't surprised that, according to a study, students are used to provide technical support in more than half the school districts of the country. The National School Boards Foundation surveyed technology decision makers for 811 public school districts, including 90 out of the top 100 largest districts, and found that students provide technical support in 54% of the districts. I'm surprised it's not higher than that, said Martha Koshinor, a teacher in the Mountain Grove School District in Arkansas. The teachers are of the older generation, we're just learning, whereas the kids who've grown up with technology. A lot of times, I do feel that the students know more than I do. And honestly, I will run into students who know more about technology than I do, even if they're maybe a year, 2 years younger than me. And so you see that a lot, even over short amounts of time, that you learn faster and you have more exposure to it. Leadership comes in many shapes and forms, and one of them is that crucial ability to provide guidance and provide direction. Admit it, sometimes you will run into a kid who knows more about your smartphone than you do, and instead of saying, oh, that's awful, I need to, beat this kid, then say, which is okay too, I guess, if you're learning about it, but you need to be open-minded to the idea that, I can learn something from this. And I think that many of you are actually really open-minded to the idea that you can learn from your kids. There was a session called When You're Not the Smartest Person in the Room that I thought was a very good example of that. Now, I've talked a lot about technology this and technology that, and I wanted to remind everyone that just like a dress doesn't make a fashion icon, equipment alone won't make an innovative classroom. It really is about attitudes, about the human part of it. To me, I believe that a lot of this is this open-mindedness. I can learn from kids. I believe that learning between adults and kids should be reciprocal. Another big part of it is the idea that everyone can have a leadership role. There are some kids who might think, this kid doesn't really look like the leadership type, and I don't want to see that. I think that it's important that everyone has a role, no matter what it is, to lead. So you may be pleasantly surprised when you open your ears to hear what students say, how much insight you can actually find in their words. I've been surprised myself by kids younger than me. So for instance, I've been corresponding with my friend Maddie in California, and she wrote me some emails. I edited them a little bit because they had some spelling errors, but, and I mean, that's one of the things. You need to look beyond that. I'm one of the most persnickety people when it comes to spelling and grammar, but I thought this was okay because there were some good ideas in here. So just to quickly read a bit of this, she said, "We're having a young authors contest in my class, and that's pretty much the only time when I am allowed to express my feelings for writing. I have much passion for it, and you do too, so any advice? I checked out your website yesterday after I sent you the email. Wow, you talk so purely and you're so intelligent, thanks. I love that about kids our age. So obviously you see some awareness about how kids can have that intelligence. When I go to school and I listen to the way some upper graders talk, it amazes me how uneducated they are. Half the time, like we said, they take advantage of my friends and I because we are smaller than them. They think that they own different parts of the school, and we want to sit at a table we can't because they own it, and they don't let us sit on the grass. I know we shouldn't leave because they really don't own the bench, but they intimidate us. So you see a lot of interesting ideas there. From that, you might glean that there's not a whole lot of opportunity for creative writing in her school, and you might also glean that she enjoys writing. That's pretty obvious. You would also understand that she has that awareness that kids, especially young kids, can often have a lot of intelligence, and she also knows that even though people are bigger than she are, even though they're intimidating, she shouldn't listen to them, but it's still intimidating. And then the second one, and this one I was particularly interested in, she was telling me about a time she took a math test and she got an A. And she went on to say that her parents didn't treat me like it was that special, that when she got an A+, they expected it, as she said, because I'm a good child. That is good, but when I get a bad grade, everyone goes ballistic. It's like you do so well, and then you mess up, and you make a little mistake, and the world flips upside down. Tell me what you think. Do you think I'm being dramatic, or is this what every good child goes through? And I hadn't even really thought about that before. Sometimes I would get a little, I would think, I've done something, and now where's my praise? But I thought it was very interesting that she pointed that out. And so sometimes listening to kids just from an email or from the most informal of conversations, you can really learn a lot about how we think and insights that might not occur to you just immediately. These are the kinds of insights that I believe not just parents, but also teachers could really benefit from. And especially when it comes to leadership, then many of the teachers and administrators probably know that a big part of it is making your voice heard, sharing those crucial ideas. So now when it comes to leadership, I want to hear what you guys have been doing. Do any of you have some leadership programs? Here's a quick poll that I wanted to run. What are some of the following leadership programs that your schools have implemented, if any? And you can select more than one, I believe, on this one. So student councils, peer tutoring or podcasting, student-led classes, student opinion or feedback sharing. And you can choose, oh dear, does this one require you to choose all four? Okay. I didn't quite realize that when I made it. I'm sorry about that. Actually, so this one requires you to choose all four. Put the two that you have but the one or two that you have at the top. Yeah, sorry about that. Or maybe if you have just maybe if you have all of them, or if you have quite a few of them, but there's one that is like the biggest, then you put that at the top. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize it required you to pick all four. So what I'll do is I'll read the. Oh, you can actually. Oh, good. Okay, maybe I was just being silly. Oh, great. That's perfect. You can just choose one. Okay. So it looks like interesting results. Okay, so there's. Yeah, that was my fault. I messed up there. Okay. It seems like there's a big variety of schools as far as leadership programs. Some have student councils, some have student-led classes, peer tutoring or podcasting, student opinion or feedback sharing. And some of these leadership opportunities I just learned about today or at this conference. For instance, when I put peer tutoring or podcasting, the mathtrain.tv. Have any of you guys heard of that? I see some raised hands. And they offer some wonderful examples of students doing peer tutoring or podcasting. They make math videos, and that's a wonderful example of providing guidance or direction. Student-led classes, I actually heard from Blake Copeland that his school next year is considering doing a student-led technology class. And so at my online high school, Washington Virtual Academies, then I participate in an online program called the Washington Virtual Academy High School Ambassadors. And basically we provide peer tutoring online. We have social hours where people can come and chat with friends. And it offers that guidance and direction aspect of leadership as well as organizing events occasionally for those social hours. And then another wonderful example can be found, Math Train, similar. And I recommend that you check out their session. I think that they have one coming up. And so you see a lot of examples of student leadership, both inside schools in ways like student councils. And I think that those are wonderful opportunities for students who are willing to speak out and make their voices heard. But we also need to consider those students who might be a little shyer about assuming those leadership roles. Students who maybe don't always raise their hand when they're called on in class. And so to get everyone participating, well, one thing that I like to do to get your opinion are these, but also the active expressions, the learning response systems can provide wonderful ways to get opinions and to get everyone participating. And we really need to look at ways that we can bring students who traditionally might not be in those leadership roles to be in leadership roles. And when everyone participates, I think we have less of that boredom that's so pervasive. I read this article and it really shocked me from Reuters, and it said a majority of US high school students say that they get bored in class every day. A majority of US high school students. And more than 1 out of 5 has considered dropping out, according to a survey released on Wednesday. When you have boredom that's so pervasive and that's so bad that you might actually think of dropping out, that it's a very severe problem. The survey of 81,000 students in 26 states found 2/3 of high school students complain of boredom, usually because the subject matter was irrelevant or their teachers didn't seem to care about them. They're not having those interactions, which we know are crucial for student engagement with learning, said Ethan Yazidins, who led the annual survey by Indiana University researchers. Now, this was a study of high schoolers, but it makes me wonder, is this the same kind of boredom? Does this exist at the junior high level? Does this exist at the elementary level? And what can we do to stop that? What can we do to make school more interesting? So my friend Maddie, whose emails I showed you, she actually was saying that she doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity for creative writing at her school. And she felt bored sometimes in class because she had to go to a mandatory typing class, basically, and they had to do the same typing activities, even though she was already proficient in typing. And she would have liked to do some creative writing, perhaps poetry, on the computers during that time, but the teachers made them do basically the same thing, the irrelevant subject matter. We see that problem popping up. And so when you get students to really be more open, to talk, to say, I think that maybe it would be better, maybe it would help my typing more if I could write something practical, like a story or a letter on the computer. Giving students the confidence to speak up and to provide their insights to you is one of the best things that I think you can do to really hear your students and allow them to take leadership. An innovative classroom shouldn't be one where students are bored to death. It should be one where everyone is participating, is interested, and can benefit from the learning that's going on. The other night at the reception, I talked to Blake Copeland, and he actually developed his own iPhone app. It's called Day Finder, which I highly recommend you guys check out. It's very cool. And he made that at 15. And so his school is planning that student-led technology class. And that was very interesting to me because I hadn't heard of the concept of student-led classes before. And one of the great things I think about that is that the students really decide what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. So whether it's getting students to take part in leadership through guidance and direction, the tech support, or doing peer tutoring, the ability to direct people on student councils, or making their voices heard through learning response systems, leading lessons, or new ideas for classroom activities, those are just a few ideas for how students can take charge and really have that power to students. So those are just a couple of ideas. Are there any examples of student leadership programs that you guys could share with me? That are being implemented currently, or even ideas that you have? Yes?
Our school's basically disciplinary committee is headed and run by students.
That's actually a wonderful idea. That's the first time I've heard of that. Okay, so a disciplinary community run by students. And actually, I could definitely see the advantages of that because I know that at my sister's school, for instance, when there's a big, if the adults are saying, this was wrong, puts the kid in detention, and sometimes that you get a little bit of resentment, I don't know, towards the adults. It seems like by having a disciplinary community run by students, you might eliminate some of that, but that's a very interesting point. Are there any other leadership programs you've seen implemented with kids? Yes?
Habitat for Humanity was a community service program
Okay, wonderful. Anything else? Yes?
Future Problem Solvers of America, our school's team, they actually won the international for how to properly dispose of prescription medicine, and it's being implemented on the state.
Wow, that's a very high honor, and I definitely congratulate you on that. So the Teacher Problem Solvers of America, thank you for, future, I thought you said teacher, sorry. Future Problem Solvers of America. What else? Yes?
Older students mentoring new students.
Older students mentoring new students, and that actually brings an interesting point. Older students mentoring new students, I think, is definitely very helpful, and I know that a lot of kids, the first day of school can be one of a lot of trepidation, and so having older students helping to mentor could hopefully eliminate some of that. I read a very interesting article from, I believe, I'm trying to remember, it was from a boy who I think about 8 years ago was the president of the student body in Snoqualmie High School, and he was talking about what is leadership, and he was consulting with other people, and he said that leadership was sometimes the very act of kindness of just saying hi to someone who is new and making them feel welcome, and sometimes those simple things. And one more program, student-initiated ideas or programs, leadership programs for students that you could mention. Yes?
Community Service Council.
Community Service Council. Okay, so these are all some wonderful ideas of student-initiated ideas or programs or student leadership programs. And these are just a few of the programs out on the board. I highly encourage everyone to think about what are some creative ways I can get the students in my classroom speaking up to have a voice. And a lot of times we think of someone as being leadership material and someone not being leadership material. I think that when you look at everyone having the potential to be leaders, no matter whether they're quiet or really loud or sometimes misbehave or whatever it is, I think everyone has the potential to be a leader. So now that we've covered the what, why, and how of student leadership, it's time to talk about the where and the who. That is, where do we get our next student leaders? Who are they? The answer is found not just in every Maddie, every Alec, every Zoe, Jerry, or Kelly and Blake, not just in the students who are leading already, but the ones who can lead in the years to come. Every student has the potential to lead in some way, shape, or form, and after all, to go back to the definition of leadership, it means the ability to guide, direct, or influence people, or the office or position of leader, and I think that that definition allows for a fair amount of creativity. So, as far as the W's go, why, what, where, who, how. What about when? I want to ask you, when do you think is the right time to make students leaders? Yes. At home, even before they start school. Wonderful. At home before they even start school. Parents. My own parents have done a wonderful job. In that they have asked my sister and I, they didn't just tell us what to do, they asked us what they thought we should be doing, they asked us what we thought about issues, really taking that inquiry position and asking kids questions about what they think on something is very important. So getting kids in leadership positions should start home before they even enter school. It should happen in school. It should happen after school. I think that leadership is something that it doesn't mean just being the president of student body or just taking a position for a couple of years. It is a lifelong trait and a lifelong skill, and one that every student can benefit from. When it comes to student leadership and education, I hope that every one of you will ask yourself why. Where, who, how, what does student leadership mean, and come up with new and innovative ideas that you can bring students to the forefront of education reform and the movement to make each one of our classrooms innovative. And as my dad said, why just in education? It can start at home. It can start in even students before they enter school, as I've heard from many people, in community service, things like Habitat for Humanity. So there are countless ways your students and your kids can go out there, guide, direct, learn, and lead inside and outside the classroom. Ultimately, it isn't just about us. It's not just students who will benefit from this. Everyone today and in the future could benefit from a new group of leaders who know how to solve problems, who know how to guide and direct and lead. Leaders who understand how to innovate and come up with new ideas. Leaders who know how to solve our global problems from practice on a classroom scale. This is the kind of future that I look forward to now. I've often said, you must help us learn today because we are the leaders of tomorrow. Many of you might have heard me say that. But why shouldn't we start leading today? After all, ask yourself, where will our next generation of principals and superintendents and teachers come from? Student leadership, I believe, keeps the engine of education moving forward to reach new heights in the 21st century and beyond. Thank you.
We do. If we have a little bit of extra time, if people have in a large group, I know it's harder to ask questions. Adora, would you mind too, if during the informal reception later, will you be around?
Yes, actually, I think I have a book signing after this or something.
Oh, book signing.
Book signing. So.
Of course. Book signing. Book signing. And how many books will you be signing?
My
Hopefully
books, Flying
thousands.
Fingers, Dancing Mirrors. Yeah, I'd be happy to sign thousands. And you can. This is actually
Where
really
is her
fun.
mother?
So basically, I can sign a book, and then you can give me an A or a B or a C, depending on how sloppy it is. And I'll take that into consideration. No, I'm just kidding. Are there any quick questions I can answer?
Well, they can talk to you at the book signing.
Yes.
Maybe they should pay for their questions.
Yes, actually, that's a wonderful idea. Two
Yes.
for the price of one. I'll double the offer. You can get not only the books, you can also ask some questions and take a picture. That's 3 for the price of 1. I've been watching too many.
The new director of November Learning Marketing will give you the book. Is your mom near? Is Joyce? Are you here? Where's? Where are you, Joyce? Oh, you're up there. You should just take a bow. How you produce this kid is absolutely amazing. Yay!
Yeah. So let me quickly plug the book signing, and anyone who wants to learn more can be sure to visit my website, adorasvitak.com, if you'd like to get in touch with me. Is it up there? I have all the websites. Let's see, my computer, is that?
What was I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry, my computer, I have a slide up here. Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, adorasvitak.com, that's my website. And then you can also check out all of my teaching clips at youtube.com/adorasvitak. And so I've talked about personal narrative, about blogging, 21st century skills, all that sort of stuff. You can find lots of different videos. Thanks.
And where's the book signing? Just
The
outside.
book signing,
Right?
I think so. I have no idea where it is.
It's
Oh,
where's
yeah,
you're
thank
going to
you.
announce the book signing. Okay.
Oh, great.
Yay.